All right, I can vouch for our next speaker because he was here last year. He's an unbelievably great guy. He's part of the Bowtie Brotherhood, as I call it. He's a regular guest on TV, radio, talk shows, CNBC, the business talk, YouTube. He's in my email inbox every morning, and he breaks down the most complicated economic principles like no one else in the world. Please welcome Dr. Elliot Eisenberg. Come on down. You're the next contestant on the See You Direct Drive 18 show.
From morning till midnight, you know I can't stand still.
Rockstar! Whoa, almost ate it. That was good.
Thank you. Welcome. Wow, it's great to be here. My gosh. There is so much to talk about. It is crazy. It's like I can't stand still. Even in my mind, I can't stand still. Where do I start? All right, look, I'm going to talk about a whole bunch of things, but the single most important thing I want you to remember is that for the next 15 months or so, this economy we're in right now should be very good. It should be the best 15 months of economic growth we've had since the end of the recession in middle of 2009. That's the first message I want to get across to you. It's really important. I'm going to talk about trouble and recessions down the road and problems we're going to face later on and tariffs and all these things. But for the next 15 months through late 19 or maybe 2020, who knows exactly, obviously, things are really going to be good. Then things get more dicey. So I want you to also focus on that. Think about how to position yourself when the recession comes, be it 2020 or 2021, what you're going to do and how you're going to arrange your business and so on and so forth, and your balance sheet and your lending and all that kind of stuff. So let's begin and say, why am I happy? I'm happy because you look at GDP, the 4 parts of GDP, see household spending is fine. Job growth is good. We'll look at some details. Wage growth is okay. It's not great, but it's good enough. Fine. Corporate investment in plant and equipment, the second term I, it's doing okay too. Not quite as good as last year, but it'll bump up. Unemployment's low. Tax is very favorable tax treatment for investment in plant and equipment now. We're running out of workers. Wages are going up. Insurance, healthcare costs are up. Let's buy some plant. That's going well. The third term is G, government spending. And this late in a business cycle, to see government spending go up is very unusual. Usually government spending ramps down late in a business cycle because, you know, everything's good. Everyone's got a job, no one needs food stamps, no one needs welfare payments, no one needs low-income heating, LIHEAP, whatever it is, you're good, you got a job. But it's very strong now. So we have C and I and G all rocking together. This is one of the rare times this has happened. The last time was 1986, late in Reagan's term, and the time before that was 20 years before that, late in the middle of LBJ. So this is an unusual circumstance. It almost guarantees a strong, robust economy, all right? This is important. So look, stock market's doing pretty well. If you own stock, if you own bonds, they're not doing quite so great, but they're still doing pretty decently. If you own some real estate, be it commercial, industrial, warehouses, it's doing well, that's nice. Household wealth is at an all-time high. It troughed out here at about 55 trillion bucks. Now it's 95, 98 trillion dollars, an all-time record. So we have with what to spend. We have wealth to spend, we have income to spend, more of us are working, so there's more money there. This is all helping, right? And, thank God, we're borrowing money. That's the most important thing, right? So, what are we borrowing? We're borrowing differently now than we did 10, 12 years ago, and that's really important. Notice mortgage debt, in yellow at the bottom, is now not quite as big as it was at the peak. It's still lower than it was. There's no housing bubble of any kind. There are housing problems, we'll get to them, but there's no bubble. People who deserve credit are getting it. People who don't deserve credit are generally not, or they're paying a lot more money for it, and that's appropriate. That's the first thing. The second thing is notice student debt. Student debt's in red. And you can see it's crazy. It's going up like mushrooms after a friggin' rainstorm. I mean, look, it's gone from this nothing to that. It's more than credit cards and more than automobiles. It's more than revolving lines of credit, right? And credit cards together almost. It's become a huge part of the balance sheet. And the problem is you incur these debts, what? When you're 25 years old, right? You graduate college, you got a student loan payment, $300 a month. Then you have a car payment of a couple $100 a month. And you're 25 and you're paying $600-700 a month in payments. How do you buy a house? You don't. You can't even afford a damn tattoo. So you got to take time. Forget about getting married and having a kid. So let's look at the quality. How are default rates doing among these asset classes, right? And they're doing, whoa, he's not doing, his asset class isn't doing so well, yeah, okay. Yeah, you're wrecking my clock, yeah, whatever. And look, the key thing here, by and large, the data is very good. If you look at all the assets back here, one slide, all of them together, all 14 trillion bucks or whatever it is, you can see things look good. Default rates continue to decline. This is all autos, home, HELOCs, autos, student loans, the whole 9 yards. It's looking pretty good. But now break it down by type of loan, and you begin to see some stories evolve here. Look. Oh, I'm busy. Tell them I'm busy right now. Look here. This is mortgage debt in yellow. It's pristine and beautiful. Revolving home equity lines, looking beautiful too. But look here. Auto loans are going up, and credit cards are going up. These are the areas where there's the most competition right now, where banks are really pushing, credit unions pushing a little bit too, but not so much. But generally, that's where the most pushing is going on. What I want to tell you, desperately to tell you, is don't let up on your lending standards. You want to get market share, don't reduce your FICO requirements. You know, beat up on other people, have longer hours, I don't know, offer better rates, I don't know, get your deposits more cheaply, I don't know what it is. But whatever you do, don't let up on your standards. We're late in a business cycle. Loans that look good now are not going to look good when we're in a recession in 2 or 3 years. That's what I want to focus your attention on here. This is household financial obligations as a percent of disposable income. It declined for a very long time as households cleaned up all their mortgage problems. But look what's going on now. There's no problem. I'm not saying we're coming to the end of the world here. No, 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 no. But what I'm saying is observe that it's steadily going up. Interest rates are rising. Mortgage debt is up. The total is going to consume more of our income to pay the bills. If you suddenly lose your job in a recession, this could be unfriendly, right? So just keep this in mind. We're late in a business cycle. This is now the second longest recovery in the history of all U.S. recoveries. We will break the record before it's all said and done, which is another year away from now, roughly. I think it's June of next year we break the record. But that's late and long in the tooth. Be careful. Look at credit cards. This is set-asides, right? Reserves for both JP Morgan and Citigroup. And you can see this over a year and a half period. You can see they went from no reserves here to not increasing them to slowly and steadily increasing. That was through Q3 of 17. That's already a ways ago, right? And you can see credit card delinquencies are starting to rise here too. They're not all that high. I'm not sitting here being terribly nervous, but I'm telling you, we're starting to change. Rates are going up. Unemployment is very, very low. We're at 50-year lows in unemployment. The economy's good. We're late in the cycle. It's starting to rise. Keep this in mind. This is auto lending. And you can see auto lending was going up a lot. This is billions of dollars on the left-hand side. Everybody could get credit. I mean, it didn't matter. Even if you had FICO below 620, yeah, for a week you couldn't get credit. And then we're back on the credit wagon again, right? Everyone gets credit, yeah. This is friggin', this is like the highway to hell. I mean, this is all going to hell. My God, AC/DC in the background, right? And then suddenly it stops. It stops. You can see here. So here we're bouncing along, boom, 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 psh. And it's been flat ever since, barely growing at 2%. All of a sudden, it's, oh, auto loans aren't doing so well suddenly. The same applies here as credit cards. Don't lower your lending standards. Don't get pulled into thinking, wow, every car loan I'm making is paying it. Of course they're paying. Unemployment's 3.9%. You're not a genius. The market's pulling you along. Every loan you make, car loan now, is going to be a good one. If you want to lower your standards, securitize the hell out of it and let some German investment fund buy it from you or something. Right? Don't hold on to it. Because, again, we're late in a cycle. You can see here, this is data, right? You can see here Fitch subprime auto loan delinquency rates. They're going up. It's subprime. It's true. It's crummy quality. And they get what they deserve. I'm joking. But beware of this, right? Because eventually some of this stuff, this is going to leach into the regular quality when we start to lose jobs down the road. Not for another 15, 16, 17 months, mind you, but eventually we're going to have a recession at some point, right? You can see it's here, deep subprime, where the problem exists, and you can see here it's the auto finance companies that are generally doing it. Stay away from them. Be careful, stick to your knitting, do what you do best, and stay there, right? And because so many cars are coming off 3-year lease payments, there's tons of cars coming off lease payments. What's happened to used car prices? They've actually been declining generally for the last couple of years because there's so much of them on the market. So many of them are available. So if you're looking at residual values of cars, keep in mind that there's been a steady, I don't know what, 2% annual decline in used car prices. This, moreover, has leached into new car prices. Look at new car prices. They're declining too. There's so many cars because so many loans were made for so long, and leases also, right? We're awash in vehicles right now. So be careful when you go, and lease limits have gotten longer. They were going 67, 68, 69 months now, right? That's a long time. As I joke, my marriage didn't last as long as my car payment did, right? You know, it's pretty crazy. I mean, this is, again, you want to make loans, don't do it by extending oh, yeah, sure, we'll give you a 120-month payment, no problem. No, stay away from this. Don't fall into this trap. The other thing we're coming into is many people, a third of all buyers are upside down, right? And they're upside down on average to the tune of about $5,000. So this is slowing down auto purchases and leasing as well. It's hard to come to the table when you're short money to begin with, right? Not all, but the good side here, inventories have returned to normal for automakers. They're not going to be offering incentives. I think we're back to normal here, if you will, on the inventory side for GM and Chrysler and all those guys, right? In terms of overall households, now we've gotten away from credit cards. We've gotten away from auto loans. This is all types of stuff. This is from the American Bankers Association. You can see rates are going up here, too. There's nothing to ring the bell about. There's nothing to say, oh my God. There's nothing to say we're in real trouble. But it's certainly a case of, oh, how about that? Look at that. I didn't expect it. But again, we're late in the cycle. This is what happens. And then you go into recession and it goes up again. It goes up for real. So again, I cannot tell you enough. Think about this. Be ready for it. Plan accordingly. Last but not least, delinquency rates on consumer loans. Another way of looking at the same data, this is from the Fed, is looking at the same kind of data, right? And you see it's trickling up, right? Because rates are going up. That's what's happened. That's what's driving this, generally speaking, right? But that being said, or because of that, because we're so happy and we can afford to default in our loans, arguably, right? Look how happy we are. This is consumer sentiment. There are 3 different groups that put out consumer sentiment. There's the University of Michigan, there's the Conference Board, and there's Bloomberg. All of them say the same thing. We are friggin' happy. We are totally happy. We're happier than Pharrell Williams ever was, or whoever it was. All these other guys are happy, 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 happy. Room without a house, house without a view, whatever it is. We're happy, right? And that line there, I joke, that's probably because Colorado and Washington State legalized pot. You know? I don't know. Just saying. You know, Texas not fun. Yeah. I don't know if medical is allowed, but I don't know. Whatever. Okay. Look at small business. Small business is friggin' thrilled out of their brains. This vertical leap That was Trump's election victory. And Trump promised tax reform, got that. Trump talked about regulatory reform, well, we got that. And Trump talked about tax cuts, and we got that too. That's pretty good. He also talked about getting rid of Obamacare and infrastructure. But as I joke, 3 out of 5, Meatloaf said, 3 out of 5 is not bad, roughly, sort of, kind of. So small business happy, people are happy, big business is thrilled, right? They're bringing money back, they're doing M&A, they're investing in plant and equipment, they're paying their workers a little more money. I mean, this is all really good news, right? We're going to hotels at a record pace. 2017 was the record in blue dotted. This is 2018. We're on the pace of breaking maybe 2017's record. So firms are happy. They're able to invest and go on corporate travel and stuff. That's terrific news. Oh, we're going on cruise ship trips. I mean, that's really crazy, right? So you're going there to gamble. Why gamble in Vegas? You can gamble as you drink and eat and travel and see the country. I mean, that's just crazy, but we're at an all-time record there. But we're not done yet. No, let's buy an RV also. I mean, are you kidding me? I'm telling you, things are good. But I don't want you to get into a feeling where you say, oh my God, everything's coming up roses. They are, but it's going to end at some point. I don't know when it will end, but I'm telling you, start thinking about it come 2020, and we'll discuss why in a couple of minutes. But things right now are fabulous. Data came out this morning. Chicago Purchasing Managers Index, it was 56. We thought we'd hit 57. It was 62. I mean, this is orgasmically spectacular data. I mean, it has never been better to be an economist than right now. This is stupendously good. But don't be deceived. That's the point. Auto sales are good. They're at 17 million units. They're not going to get much better because we're carved out. It's been flat now, as you can see, for quite some time at about 17 and a half. I'm sorry, not 17. Those are high numbers by historical standards, but they're not going to get any better because we've made up for the cars we didn't buy in the recession. You know, these years right in there where we bought too few cars. Then there was the hurricanes, I forgot the 3. There were 3 back-to-back last year in Texas, Florida, and Puerto Rico. There was some boom in car purchases right there as a result of those storms. They're done, they're over with. So figure on the current level of automobile sales going forward, not much change. Good numbers, not record numbers, but good numbers. So we're buying cars, we're buying RVs, we're going on vacation, we're gambling. All these great things are happening, and if you put it together, the first term in GDP, household consumption, is good. It's going up. The data came out today. It's not here. This number went back up to right around there. So it's been steady at 2.75, 2.7%. It's great. So the first term in GDP has been good, it is good, and it will stay good for the next foreseeable future. Next year, year and a half, 2 years, whatever, year and a half. We'll talk about why not in a minute. Next, let's look at corporate spending. It's doing okay too, and it'll be solid this year. Why? Taxes. You can expense purchases of plant and equipment now as opposed to depreciating them. That makes the return better. 2, oil prices are way up. Texas is happy about this, right? Lots of going on in Texas. This is the Permian Basin, the best oil play, shale play in the country. This is the number of rigs in that play. Ridiculously high number, right? So things are good there. This is outstandingly good, right? This is going to add lots of money. We're going to drill for oil. We're going to frack the oil. We're going to crack the oil. We're going to build pipelines, ships, liquefy natural gas. All this stuff is going to be great. Good for the economy. Next, corporate profits. So data came out just this morning. It's back up again. So this little decline that we see here, it's going up, no problem. We're doing well on that score, very well on that score. So firms have money, tax cuts have happened, right? Consumer spending is good, so firms have profits. This is good news here, right? Next, net interest margin for banks is going up. I don't have credit unions, this is banks. Net interest margin is going up. Return on assets is also going up. So everybody's pretty happy here. Now, banks are happier than you guys because they don't have to pay their depositors anything, right? They can screw their depositors. You guys are nice guys. You don't do that. So you can't play the rising interest rate, charge higher on the loans, and don't pay them anything on the checking account game. But they do that. But I digress. But we're relatively happier than we were as depository institutions. That's pretty good news. Manufacturers are ecstatic. That's crazy happy how manufacturers are. They haven't been that happy since back there, almost 15 years ago. Small business, big business, households, manufacturers are happy. How about services? That's most of the economy now. Getting, your hair done, going on buying an airplane ticket, going to a restaurant, schooling, healthcare. It's all services. Look at the blue line. The series begins right here. It's almost at an all-time high. This is terrific. Services, manufacturing, RVs, vacations, going to Vegas. What's wrong here? There's nothing wrong. That's why we're going to have a good economy for the next 15 months. It's almost impossible not to see it happening. This is investment in equipment, not plant, but equipment, capital goods, core capital goods. So these are things you buy so that you can make more of the things that you sell. A lathe. Think of it that way. Look at these numbers, straight up. This is good news. It's good for the economy now. It raises worker productivity. It raises worker wages. This is good news. So we're happy here too. Now, let's talk about government spending. This is the critical linchpin here. We've talked about C, doing fine. We've talked about I, corporate investment. And I've already told you that to have C and I and G going together is unusual. It's only happened before twice in the last 50 years until now. What's weird is, well, first, let's look at the data. First, tax cuts occurred in December of 2017. That's the boost to GDP from tax cuts in blue. Then in February, Congress increased spending. They just borrowed $300 or $400 billion over a couple of years to increase defense spending, social spending, and some hurricane relief. That's in red. You put those together, you get a 0.5 percentage point bump up in GDP. So GDP used to be 2.3%. Now it's going to be more like 2.8 or 2.9. That's a noticeable improvement in GDP. That's why it's easy for me to get up here and say the next 15 months should be terrific, right? But what's the catch? Well, look at the graph. The catch is there. That little bump, that's 2020. And the fiscal stimulus that we're having right now here becomes actually mildly contractionary come 2020. Unemployment will be very low. There'll be no workers. We'll have contractionary monetary fiscal policy. We'll have tighter monetary policy. And interest rates are going to be higher as a result. This is likely to begin to push us into raising the probabilities of a recession. That's why I want you to be on guard. Enjoy the time now, but be ready for when things start to change as early as late 2019, 2020, 2021. But if I had to bet, I'd say 2020 is the most likely year the recession hits. I hope I'm wrong, right? I hope it's 2021. We'll get one eventually. It will have been a record recovery by then, but some things do. Last but not least, there's the dollar and trade. Trade's a hard-to-see thing. I didn't look at my Twitter feed this morning. I don't know what Trump did on trade, but it looks like he's imposing tariffs on China and tariffs on Europe. They're going to retaliate. This is certainly going to upset the apple cart. In the very short run, it's not going to matter much. This year, not going to matter enough. But over a year or two, it could reduce GDP by 0.2 points. That's already serious. So you add that to what's going on in come 2020, and you go, oh, this is serious enough to be concerned about things. That's why I'm putting you on notice. Enjoy it now. Everything's good. But as Louis XIV said in French, après moi, la déluge. After me, the deluge, right? So be careful here. This is trade. Exports are good. They're in blue. Imports are stronger in green. The gap is in red, and you can see it's getting a little worse. We cannot fix the trade problems through changing trade policy. If China buys $200 billion more of our stuff, we'll just import more stuff from some other country. Trade deficits have nothing to do with trade. They have to do with savings and investment by households, by corporations, and by government. If we all overspend, we have to import money, and the way we import the money is partly through a trade deficit. Look at this graph. This proves it to you, not literally, but almost proves it to you. So our trade deficit's in blue. Look at that. In the recession, it declines precipitously from 65 billion a month to barely 30 billion a month. Massive improvement in our trade deficit. Is it because we had different trade policy? No. It's because households began to save like crazy and corporations began to save like crazy, and they overwhelmed the savings, the dis-savings that went on by government through deficit spending. Now it's getting worse because the economy's good. We're importing stuff from foreigners. But look what happened. So here, black is oil. Our oil imports declined from 30 billion bucks to about 5 billion. That's fantastic. Our deficit should decline by 25 billion bucks a month, right? Because we're importing less oil, because we're making more of our own, and import's cheaper. No, because trade policy has nothing, trade deficits have nothing to do with trade. Did we change our savings and investment patterns? No. Did government change its savings and investment patterns? No. Did firms change their investment and savings patterns? No. So as a result, look at red. Reds are importing of stuff. Psh, it got much worse. It compensated. Every dollar of improvement there was wiped out by a disimprovement there because we didn't change our behavior. And it's only if we change our behavior as households, as corporations, and as government savings or investment is that we change our trade deficit. So Trump can't physically do it. That said, China is a rotten actor. They deserve to be spanked. And if he can change their behavior, that would be good. But it wouldn't change our trade deficit, right? And this is the tariff problem. If you impose tariffs on primary metals, these guys are the winners, guys who work making metal in a foundry or a mill or something, right? But look who loses. All the guys who use the stuff they make gets used here, and then we buy it. And suddenly our refrigerator costs more money. Our air conditioner costs more money. My favorite beer costs more money, all because of this tariff. So there are like 100,000 winners and 337 million losers in this game. That's why trade tariffs, wars are detrimental and reduce GDP under almost all circumstances, right? Last but not least for this section, the global economy is doing okay. Last year, the global economy did spectacularly well. Europe, Japan, South America, everybody was rocking. This year, it's more rocky. Europe's not doing so well. Japan had a negative quarter. Argentina and Brazil are teetering on recession here. No one's in recession yet, but we're going to get a couple of countries this year. So global growth will probably, developed world growth will slow a little. It'll still be good. It'll help our exports. It'll help our imports. But the world's not quite as fast, but we have very strong G, as I said before. So you put it together, this is GDP. It's okay. It's not great. It's not bad. It'll be a little better going forward, easily 0.5 percentage point for the next 15 months or so, when this massive fiscal stimulus courses through our economy. But after that's over, GDP goes back to what it's been at, 2.1, 2.2%. And you say, why? Can't we do better than that? Shouldn't we be able to grow faster than miserable stinking 2%? And the answer is no. We can't grow faster than that because GDP only grows for two reasons. More people working. There aren't more people working because there aren't enough people born 16, 17, 18 years ago. You know, it's, as I joke, fornication just isn't as much fun as it used to be. I don't know, but no one wants to have children. I mean, it's expensive. We're a more urban community. Parking costs more money. Owning a car costs more money. Sending a kid to college costs more money. I get it. The second reason is labor productivity growth isn't all that good. You add those two together, ta-da, that's GDP growth. So our long-run GDP is roughly 2%. We're going to do better over the next 15, 18 months because of all this fiscal stimulus that's running through the economy. And then it ends, and then we go back to where we were, and maybe a little worse, because we'll be long in the tooth, we'll run out of workers, I'll get there in a second. Last but not least, again, no recession. This is a measure of yield curve inversion. The yield curve looks like this. The longer you borrow in years, the more money you pay in interest rate. 10-year mortgage more than a 20-year mortgage. 30-year mortgage costs more than a 20 costs more than a 10, right? Sometimes the yield curve inverts, and when it inverts, the blue squiggle goes above the red bar. But we're not there. We're getting closer, it's true. Even if we get there, it often takes a year to get a recession. And I'm not sure this measure means quite as much as it used to mean. It doesn't mean what it used to mean because the central bank, the Fed, owns so many long-term treasuries, they've pushed down the long end of the yield curve. So am I nervous about an inversion? No. Is it possible the yield curve will invert? Yes. Every time the yield curve's inverted since 1966 here, every time it's been followed by a gray bar. Gray bars are recessions. So the Fed's worried about this. The market's worried about this. We're all nervous about it. I don't think it'll happen. If it does, I don't think it alters my opinions about the recession coming no sooner than late 2019 or early 2020. So don't worry too much about this, all right? Let's talk about labor markets. They are friggin' tight. This is unbelievable. They are so tight, it's crazy. Job growth peaked out several years ago at 3 million. Now it's down to 2.1 or 2.2. This is still a very good number, but there's a catch. The catch is the only way we're able to get this growth in jobs is by driving the unemployment rate down. Our economy right now, because of the lack of fornication we talked about earlier, only produces 1 million new workers a year. That's it. 80, 90, maybe 100,000 a month, 1.2 million, we could argue, but it's somewhere about that level. So if we're producing 2.1 million jobs, and we're only creating 1 million new people, workers entering the labor force every year, we're 1 million people short. To get those 1 million people, we've had to drive the unemployment rate down. So last year, the unemployment rate fell from 4.7 to 4.1. And the year before, it fell from like 5.3 to 4.7. Okay, how about now? It goes from what, 4.1 to 3.5? Okay, that's it, we're done. Unemployment can't fall below 3.5. That's as low as it's been in like 75 years. The last time, right now we're at 3.9 here. The last time we were lower was for 1 month in 1999. At the peak of the dot-com boom, we hit 3.8. The last time it was lower than that on anything like a sustained basis was back here in the late 1960s. If you go online and type in Hendricks, Eisenberg, Joplin, Janis Joplin, you'll see the three of us on stage at Woodstock. That's how long ago it was. When our economy had an unemployment rate of 3.6%. I mean, we were taking heroin, we were doing shrooms. I mean, it was a good time. I remember, I'm older than you think, really. This is crazy low. That's why we're gonna run out of workers come 2020, because you can't keep driving the unemployment rate down at much more than you have. So then wages are gonna start to rise and so on. Look at this. This is the number of Americans looking for every available job. Total number of unemployed Americans divided by number of available jobs. So if you look here at the worst, right there, for example, there were, 7 million unemployed Americans and 1 million jobs. That's 7. Look at it now. It's 1. There are literally 5.5 million unemployed Americans divided by 5.5 million jobs. That's full employment. There's a job for everybody. Of course, the people who don't work, who are unemployed, have no skills. And the ones who have skills, they can't pass a drug test. I get it. I understand this. I'm aware. But this is a tight labor market, right? This is really, really tight. How about wages? Aren't wages going up? Not so much. Good economy. Very tight labor markets. You think wages are going up, but look, they're not going up that much, 2.6%. And that's been going on for 3 years, 2.5 years. It's not terrible, but it ain't great. There are a couple of things going on. One's demographic. If you fix for demographics, the 2.6% annual wage growth jumps up to about 3.2 or 3.3. That's not bad. What's going on is boomers, there are so many boomers retiring, they're at the end of their careers, they're making good money. And they're being replaced by college freshmen, high school dropouts, whatever, college dropouts. And there's 13,000 new people coming in a day, and there are 10,000 boomers retiring. It's almost even. But the boomers make much more money than the millennials coming in. So if you fix for that, you get this. That's partly what's going on. That's one reason. Secondly, Uber. People do the gig economy. They like working for themselves. They may make less money, but they love it. I've talked to Uber drivers. No, I make my own schedule. I sleep late. I have a kid. You know, my wife works. I bring my kid to work, school. Then I go work for 8 hours in the cab, whatever. They will trade off more money for more freedom. That lowers wages, right? And labor productivity, as I talked to you about earlier, with that blue and the red stacked bar graph there, it's very low. So firms can't pay workers more money because they're not more productive. They're not making any more loans every day, right? They used to make 9 loans a day, and now they still make 9 loans a day. Well, you can't pay them more money if they aren't more productive at some level, right? If you pay them more, you'll lose money on that person. So you can't pay people more money. But the Fed is still nervous. They're concerned that, my gosh, at some point, unemployment gets so low that inflation rates start to skyrocket. Because they're central bankers, remember, and central bankers are born to fear inflation. Think of you when you were 4 years old, right? And you went to bed at night and you were nervous because the boogeyman was going to come, right? And you held on to your mom's hand, please sing me a song, don't leave me alone, give me a nightlight. Central bankers are the same way with inflation. Oh, is there inflation here? Where's inflation? Inflation lurks everywhere. Under a cup, under a pad, inside the cookie jar, there's inflation. And all they want to do is raise rates. That's all they want to do is raise rates all the time. They never want to lower them. They always want to raise them. They're central bankers. And this is what makes them nervous. So how about inflation? Contrary to the header, inflation actually is starting to appear. We're getting inflation. We're late in a business cycle. We're running out of workers. Commodity prices are starting to rise a little bit. This is a classical symptoms of a late business cycle. This business cycle has been much more delayed and much more subdued than other business cycles, but we're still getting there. It's still moving, so let's look at the data. This is CPI, what you think of as inflation. Blue is headline inflation. Red is core. The difference between headline and core is headline has food and energy, core no food and energy, all right? Economists like to look at core because, as you're nodding your head, Charles, it's because food and energy just bounce around for no good reason. A war in the Middle East, a drought in Australia, cereal prices go up, or whatever. Look at those numbers. They are clearly rising. There is no doubt that they're going up. Now, they went up here, it's true, there, and they went up here a bit, but now we're late in a cycle. We're going to have sustained inflation. It's starting to appear. It's not going to be strong because wage inflation is not going crazy and overall headline inflation not going bonkers either. But we're starting to see some rumblings of inflation. Look at the Fed's favorite measure. This is the PCE, not the CPI. And again, here you see again exactly the same thing. Core and headline are both at around 2%. That's the Fed's favorite measure. Core, red on this graph is the Fed's, and it's finally at or near its 1.9. Came out today, 1.8 actually. But we're really close, and we're slowly moving up. Inflation's appearing. Now, why am I convinced of this? Look at the next graph. This graph tells us how fast our economy can grow if everything's hunky-dory. If we're all working and factories are working and there's no labor strikes and everything's good and things are great, that's the blue line. The red line's where we actually are. And you can see when there's a recession, a gray bar. Right after the gray bar, there's a big gap between red and blue. Why is there a gap? Because people are unemployed and factories closed down and we're not using our resources in our economy efficiently, right? So you see a big gap develop here. And it takes a while, and eventually we get back to trend. This was the most recent recession. It was really big. And eventually we get back to trend. But notice where we are right now. Red's above blue. Look here, red's above blue and red's above blue. Third time red's above blue in this picture. The previous 2 times when red's above blue, what happens? Ta-da, recession. Ta-da, recession. That's why inflation pressures build. The Fed starts to raise rates. They raise rates too much, and they drive us into the drink. Do I know this will happen? No. But do I expect this is a reasonable probability, likelihood? Yeah, damn right. Not now, not the next 12, 15 months, no. But it's probably good. We're going to have a recession. The Fed's usually what drives us into recession because they raise rates just too damn fast because they think there's inflation when there isn't any. It's not their fault. They do the best they can. I'm not blaming them. Don't get me wrong here. Big difference. But things just happen. And there's global shocks, that happen too. You throw that into the mix, it gets hard. Like Italy or Spain. Italy, and this is crazy what's going on in Europe. Endless problems with the EU because they should never have made the euro in the first place. It was a stupid idea that sounded good. Kind of like my marriage, but I digress. Okay. What's going to happen to interest rates? Well, this is my favorite graph. It's clear. The shorter the central bank chairman, the lower the interest rates are. There's nothing hard to see here, people. I'm not making this up, right? Paul Volcker was 6'8". No wonder rates were 15%. Yellen was shorter. Rates were lower. This guy is too damn friggin' tall. Who here is under 5'3"? Go to the central bank and tell them you're the answer to our monetary policy problems. Kidding aside, this is what happens to interest rates. I don't know exactly. This is where we are right now. Fed funds overnight money between 1.5% and 1.75%, right? Fine. By the end of the year, they're going to raise rates at least 2 more times. They really are going to raise rates 2 more times. So we get to 2 1/8, between 2 and 2 1/4, actually, in the middle, 2 1/8. I think the following year they raise rates a couple more times. Oops, they raise rates a couple more times. Not a lot, 2 more times, right? 3 more times. So by the end of 19, when I think it's time to think about the recession, we're somewhere around 3% in interest rates. These are not high rates, right? These are not high rates. I don't want you to sit here and think, oh my God, rates are going to go bonkers. They're not. The central bank won't let inflation get out of the bag. And GDP can't grow that fast because of population problems and labor productivity problems. If you put those together, you can't have a lot of interest rates because interest rates are correlated with inflation and GDP growth. If they're both weak, interest rates have to be weak. And you can look at the 10-year. There's nothing really going on the 10-year. In terms of my end of 2020 prediction, this presupposes no recession. If there's no recession, labor markets are super tight. Unemployment's at 3.2%, commodity prices are higher, and the Fed has to keep raising rates to dampen down the economy. We may well be in a recession by then. In that case, rates are starting to go down already, so all bets are off. So focus on the 2019 number. Don't focus on the 2020 number. That's really an optimistic outcome. I hope it happens. I'm not prepared to bet much on it. Now, let's spend a few minutes and talk about real estate. The real estate market's a mess. There's no 2 ways to describe it otherwise. It's beautiful on one hand and a wreck on the other. So here's the story. Total spending, residential investment put in place, is right around $550 billion a year, back where we were in 2005. That's pretty good, right? No one's complaining. 2005 was a great year. But since then, 2 things have importantly happened. One, the houses that are built are bigger. Builders have stopped building small houses because they make no money. They can't build entry-level homes in any city in America. It doesn't matter if it's Wichita Falls, Texas, if it's Wichita, Kansas, or if it's Washington, D.C., no entry-level homes anywhere in the country. So you see, and there's been 10, 12 years of inflation reducing the value of the money. If you put those together, you can see that in 2005, which is right there, we built 1.6 million single-family homes. In 2016, albeit a year ago, it's true, we built 725,000. Now we're at 850,000 or so, 800,000. We're building half the number of homes we did in 2005. Same dollars, half the number of homes because of inflation and house size increases because builders can't make any money at the small end of houses, building entry-level homes. So you look at this data. Multifam looks beautiful. It's at 400,000. That's kind of like the multifam, I don't know, H spot, if you will, for housing, or M spot, right? It's a good number. There's no problem. We're not building quite the right multifam structures, more condos we need, we're getting more rentals, but that's besides the point. But look at the damn single fam number. This is a calamity. The only time you have a number of about 850,000, which is where we are right now, is going into recession. Out of recession, into recession. Out, in, out, in, out, in, out, in, out. You never have this few homes except going into or coming right out of a recession. But we're about to enter the 9th year of recovery in 2 months. This is the second longest recovery in history. Yet we're building single-fam homes at a rate as if we are just going into or coming out of recession. And that's why there's no inventory. And that's the problem. Now, why can't builders build more homes? Regulatory costs are killing them. Codes and land use requirements are so severe, they can't build homes. It takes years to get the land, and you have to fight the this, and you gotta get that, and the permits and waters, fire sprinklers, and whatever. They can't make any money building an entry-level home, be it a $200,000 home in Kansas City or $250,000, or a $1 million home in San Francisco. They can't do it. New York City, they can't do it. There's nothing affordable being built. There's no labor. Wages in construction are going up faster than other sectors by about a whole percentage point because there are no skilled tradesmen. The foreigners who were here illegally left. The people who were Americans who did it until 2007-8 quit and aren't coming back because it's too risky an industry. This is a problem, right? And input costs are crazy expensive. Trump imposed tariffs on lumber, and there are other factors going on in lumber as well, but look at the lumber prices. That's insane. They're higher today than they were at the height of the boom in 4, 5, 6. And now he's imposing tariffs on steel, metal, and wood. That's a big chunk of a house. Labor costs are up, input costs are up, land costs are up. Builders say, forget it, we can't do it. We're not building enough homes. Job growth is good, 2 million. Wage growth is 3%. But there's no homes to buy. Look at this. Over the last 35 straight months, right? 35 straight months. Look at the inventory of homes. It's consistently declined year over year. We're flat out of homes. We're underbuilt homes by, I don't know, 4.5 million homes. This year alone, we will underbuild by 300,000 more. We're making the ditch bigger. It's crazy. Market's great, prices are up, jobs are good, interest rates are still relatively low, and the builders aren't building any homes. They're building only expensive homes because those are the only homes they can make money at. Remodeling is doing fine, thank you very much. Why? It's easy. Interest rates are low, right? Home prices are up, so home equity is good, and there's nothing to buy. So here I am living in suburban Maryland, just outside DC in Chevy Chase. My kid goes to college. I want to live downtown. There's nothing to buy. So I say to myself, oh, I guess I can't get the house I want. I'll make the house I have that I don't want kind of nice. It's like that crappy song, if you can't be with the one you love, love the one you're with, right? It's a horrible song, just god-awful bad. When I was a kid, I didn't understand what it meant, but as an adult, my God, this is really awful. But anyways, that's what the housing market is. Oh, I can't find a nice home. I'll stick a pool in my house I have now. I don't like it, but at least I'll have a pool. But then, once you do that, you don't put your house on the market because you've invested in the pool or the new floor or the new kitchen for $60,000 or marble, you know, whatever, I don't know, stupid junk. We also have foreigners buying our homes. Not so much in Dallas, but San Francisco, Los Angeles, Portland, Seattle, New York City, Boston, Miami. There are a lot of cities where foreigners want to park money in the US, right? So look at home prices. They're going up by 6.5%, and they've been rising now for 3 years, 1 year, 2 years, 3.5 years in a row. We've gone from 4.5 to 6.5. Inflation is 2. Wage inflation is 3. And house price inflation is 6. 6.5. And the further west you go, the higher the amount is. So California, Washington, Oregon, Nevada, Colorado, those are Arizona, those are much faster places. Las Vegas are much higher increases than Kansas City, Minneapolis, and so on. East Coast, again, is relatively high, but not as high as the West Coast. But yet there's no bubble. I talked about that earlier, and it's true. These are FICO scores for various percentile people. So these are borrowers at 50 percentile, flat at 750 FICO. There's no problem with them. Banks and credit unions are not lowering standards. We're not giving loans to crappy people who don't deserve them. The 25th percentile, flat at 700 FICO. The bottom 10%, these are really risky buyers, at 650, but not declining. Again, this was the highway to hell. That was going to hell in a handbasket. This was a friggin' disaster. And you can see here, banks and credit unions are becoming much more thoughtful about how much to charge. You can see before the gap between low FICO here, right, and high FICO there wasn't that big. But look at it now, it's widened out considerably. If you're a bad risk, you're paying much more percentage-wise than they are. The gap is bigger. So we're allocating capital pretty well here. No bubble, right? In terms of new existing home sales, where if you're on the housing market and you do mortgages, you can see here, this lack of inventory is killing us. Look at this. Sales have been flat for the last year and a half. There's been no increase in sales because there's nothing friggin' to buy. Because the damn friggin' builders won't build a cheap house. And job growth is good. Good job growth, decent wage growth, no home construction growth. We got a problem. And that's the manifestation of it, right? This is pending home sales. Data came out today for pending home sales. It's the 4th month in a row, year over year, of declining sales, year over year. Because there's nothing to buy. Will sales go up 1% or 2% this year? It could. 5% now. The higher I am, the happier I get. I don't see anything good. 1%. Price is up by 6, volume up by 1. That's what we're looking at nationally. There's nothing great going on here. And you can see it here. First-time mortgage apps are pretty flat. There's nothing really going on here either because mortgages aren't happening because home sales. We'll still sell a bunch of homes, right? 5.5 million homes, whatever it is. These aren't bad numbers here, but they're not going up much, right? Refi is dead. Just buy your staff a gun and 1 bullet and let them share, I don't know. Last but not least, look at the millennials. They matter a lot. Focus on their needs for banking services. But by all means, don't forget the boomers. 2/3 or 3/4 of all American wealth resides with boomers right now. You have to cater to their needs. You must cater to them. Them and them. I'm in the middle here. You can forget about us. We don't care. 2 more slides, we'll wrap it up. What's going on? This is Texas, but this is unemployment rates across the country. They are remarkably low. Even in the bad states, there are almost no states with unemployment rates above 5%. Just 2 or 3, New Mexico, Alaska, West Virginia. That's it. These are unbelievably low unemployment rates, staggeringly low. In terms of leading economic indicators, look at this. Every single state in the country is doing well, except the one state where I live. I always wonder, is there a correlation here? Is there a causal relationship? I'm not really sure. Kidding aside, things are fine. For the next 15 or 18 months, sit back, relax, enjoy yourself, and get prepared for the recession that's likely to come. This is how to contact me: website, email, Twitter handle, all that stuff. And I put out 70 words a day on economics. No graphs, no ads, no charts, no links, no photos. Give me your business card. Text the word bowtie to 22828, or go to my website, Econ70, and you can sign up there. The economy is fine, but get ready for something nefarious that's likely to happen no earlier than 2020. Be ready. Don't lower your lending standards. Treat your employees well, and you'll be ready for what follows. We have hopefully time for questions, maybe if we're lucky, even no time for questions. I'm kidding. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Don't go anywhere. Don't go
Okay,
anywhere.
I'm saying.
We have 5 minutes, 4 minutes. It just changed, like literally as I looked at this. We have 4 minutes for questions.
Go.
I got some on the app. Thank you guys for submitting them. Let's try to go through these quickly. Number one, why has worker productivity flattened out?
In corporate economists don't understand this process all that well. Part of it is we spend all our time on the Amazon app and watching Netflix. So what we think is increasing productivity hasn't really been. Maybe there's mismeasurement. Firms clearly haven't been investing in plant and equipment over the last 10 years as they have prior to that, training as well.
Got it. How will a recession affect leases that slowly pay down the underlying asset?
Wow, that's a complicated question. We'll have to talk about it offline. I'm really sorry.
You get a beer for that one.
Yeah.
When we have the next recession,
Yep.
how will it measure up? The Great Recession
No.
or a minor blip? How do we
It's going to
prepare?
be a small recession. Don't think of it in terms of the last. Think of it more like an average recession. Just things happen, right? Things get too high, rates go up, and we drive us into. It's a regular. The problem is we're going to have a large budget deficit when we hit this recession because of the tax cuts that have just gone through. So fiscal policy is not going to be as loose. It's not going to be able to have tax cuts or spending increases because the deficit's already going to be strained. So this mild recession may take a little longer to get out of. Maybe not 6 months, maybe 8 months, but it'll be a regular recession.
And how would you prepare for the recession? Any good advice?
Lots of Coke, you know, because you're going to have free time on your hands. You're not going to make so many loans. Sit back, relax. I mean, get your balance sheets in good shape. You know, make sure your loans are really solid. Make sure to get extra, don't lend quite so much against the asset. You know, make it only 75, not 80% if you can. Make the duration of the loan, 60 months, not 65 months. Tighten up, shorten up, raise FICO to extent. All the normal things you do. There's nothing magical here. Don't extend. Don't try new places and do crazy loose lending.
That's the best loose lending reaction I've ever seen. All right, last question. Is there an ideal personal savings rate which has been declining again?
Personal savings has been declining. Data came out today. It was 2.8%. These are really low rates. This is not a good thing. In the short run, it's great. We spend more money, but we're not saving for the proverbial rainy day. The government isn't, households aren't, corporations really aren't either. So yeah, I'd like to see savings rates go up. It would help us. It would lower our trade deficit, lower interest rates, but we're Americans. We don't save. We import savings from abroad.
Oh, man. You're amazing. Please give it up for Dr. Eisenberg. I mean, honestly, that was phenomenal.
Thank you
so much.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank
Always.
you. Have a great afternoon. Are you going to be around, Doctor?
I'll
For
be
a few
back.
minutes. Oh, well, we got another session. So you'll have to email him your questions. The table I was sitting at, somebody turned to me like 3 minutes in and said that Dr. Elliot Eisenberg is like the Jerry Seinfeld Kramer of economists. He's like, oh, Jerry, did you see that? Like, that's exactly what he is. I loved it.